Hello students, you are welcome to LODLC lecture series on MKT 309 Management Theory, Study Section 4. The title of today's topic is Scientific Management Theory. Introduction. You will recall that we discussed the evolution of management theory in the previous study section, where the history of the classical management thought was discussed. The scientific management theory, you will also recall, is one of the three streams of classical movement. Some groups of scholars wrote, even though not extensively, on management before the classical theorists. This group of scholars are known as the pre-classical contributors. We will therefore spend some time on these theories before we take a look at the classical theorists. The main concern of this study section is to cover the range of issues such as the definition and focus of scientific management theory, the contributions of Taylor, the Gilbert and Gant to the scientific management theory. A general assessment and critique of the theory is also undertaken in this study section. Outline of study section 4. When you have studied this section, you should be able to identify and explain the contributions of pre-classical theorists, to discuss the contributions of Taylor, the Gilberts, and Gant to the scientific management school, and lastly, do a critical assessment of the scientific management school. Contributions of pre-classical theorists. Some scholars in the mid and early 1800s provided some ideas that invariably laid the groundwork for later investigations into management. Some of these pre-classical theorists are Robert Owen, Charles Babbage, and Henry R. Thom. Let us take a brief look into each of their contributions. Contributions by Robert Owen. Owen was a cotton mill owner in Scotland who pioneered ideas about better treatment of workers. He was one of the earliest writers to recognize the importance of human resources in organization. He took interest in the working condition of his employees, so he improved their living condition by upgrading streets, homes, sanitation, and their educational system. Initially, Owen's ideas were considered radical, but today his views are accepted. What is Owen's contribution to later theory? Owen's work laid the groundwork for human relation and movement. As earlier said, the human relation movement will be discussed later in this course. Another pre-classic theorist is Charles Babbage, a mathematician who pioneered in the areas of computing and management. He produced the world's practical mechanical calculator. He took interest in the idea of work specialization. He also recognized the possibility of specialization in both physical and mental work. Babbage also devised a profit-sharing plan that had two parts: a bonus awarded for useful suggestions and a portion of wages that was dependent on factory profit. His basic contribution is the idea of incentives to workers. Most big organizations today embark on increased workers' productivity and commitment by involving them in profit sharing. Another pre-classic theorist is Henry R. Thom, the last of the pre-classic contributors. Thom advocated the need to consider management as a separate field of systematic inquiry on a par with engineering. He argued that both engineering skills and business skills are needed to run an organization effectively. He advocated for studying management as a science and developing principles that could be used in all types of management situations. One major observation about the pre-classic contributor is that their efforts were largely oriented towards developing specific techniques, usually to solve visible problems. Contributions of scholars to scientific management theory. Contribution from Frederick W. Taylor. Taylor's scientific management was the first significant movement to attempt to produce the guidance for management. Primarily, the goals of scientific management was efficient cooperation. The theory called for a careful and minute analysis of each task through time and motion studies. The purpose of this analysis was to discover the one best way of completing each component of the work. Taylor believed that workers engaged in soldering, a situation whereby workers deliberately work at less than their full capacity for three reasons. One, workers feared that increasing their productivity would cause them or other workers to lose their jobs. Two, the faulty wage system set up by the management encouraged workers to operate at low pace. Three, the general methods of working and rules of thumb handed down from generation to generation were very inefficient. Taylor believed that manager could resolve the soldering problem by developing a science of management based on the following four principles. 1. Scientifically study each part of a task and develop the best method of performing the task. 2. Carefully select workers and train them to perform the task by using scientifically developed method. 3. Cooperate fully with the workers to ensure that they use the proper method. 4. Divide work and responsibilities so that management is responsible for planning work method used using scientific principles and workers are responsible for executing the work accordingly. In the remaining part of this section, you will learn about the followers of Taylor. Contribution from the Gilberts. Frank Gilbert, a contemporary of Taylor, and his wife Lillian Gilbert developed time and motion studies to develop more effective work procedures. Gilbert stressed that management systems should always be written. The Gilbert emphasized the human factors in management and advocated the study of the human science. They collaborated on fatigue and motion studies and focused on ways of promoting the individual worker's welfare. The ultimate aim of scientific management, according to them, was to help workers reach their full potential as human beings. Contributions from Henry L. Gantz. Gantz, another scientific management theorist, worked with Taylor for many years, so his work was greatly influenced by Taylor. He, however, made some original contributions after he became an independent consultant. The best of his work was his tax and bonus system of incentive pay, where the workers was given a bonus when he reached standard. He put some emphasis on setting specific tasks with proper rewards for every member of the organization to work towards. Gant emphasized habits of industry, that is, organizations develop habitual ways of doing things. In modern day management and organization studies, this is known as corporate culture. He also developed what later became as the Gantt chart, a graphic aid to planning, scheduling, and controlling that is still in use today. Contribution from Harrington Emerson. Emerson was another contemporary of Taylor whose work took a somewhat different direction. He worked mainly without contact with other pioneers of scientific management and emphasized the great productivity of correct organization. Emerson stated the following principles for efficiency: clearly defined objectives. Managers must know what they want to accomplish and they must eliminate vagueness and uncertainty. Secondly, consultation. Managers should actively seek advice from knowledgeable others. 3. Discipline. Managers should set up the organization so that employees can obey the rules. Then the next one is fair deal. Manager must seek out justice and fairness. Then we have standard and schedules. Managers must develop methods for performing their tasks and establish a time to perform each one. Then we also have standardized conditions. Managers should maintain a uniformity of environment. Then the last one is standard operation. Managers must maintain a uniformity of method. We also have contributions from Maurice L. Cook. The last of Taylor's followers was Cook, who applied the principles and techniques of scientific management to the fields of government and education. Not only did he demonstrate that scientific management has application in all types of organizations, he also advocated for the participation of every employee in finding the one best way. Scientific management theory. The critics. Criticism of scientific management theories include 1. Through its concentrations on the machinery and economic aspects of human nature, the scientific school tend to ignore the social and psychological needs of employees. 2. Division of labor creates boredom for those who must perform routine tasks. Other criticism of scientific management are: scientific management was devised and implemented when mass production was widely used in manufacturing industry, and it fitted well with the technological requirement of the period. Also, another criticism of scientific management theory is that unemployment can result from increased industrial efficiency. Fewer people are needed to produce a given amount of goods. Then contributions of scientific management theory. You have learned about the scientific management theory and its weakness. You should note that the theory is not completely bad, for it has its positive contributions, such as: 1. Taylor showed that there was great value in conceptualizing a general management theory. 2. Scientific management left a large group of new ideas for promoting organization efficiency. For instance, Taylor's prescriptions for scientific personnel selection and rational work methods. Its emphasis on training and indoctrination of being used to date by management and practitioners. 3. Taylor's concern for cooperation underlined the importance of this issue, still challenge organizational theories till today. We have come to the end of today's lecture series. Thank you for listening. Have a lovely day.